forbearance. Why don't we first talk about what forbearance is? First of all, just in general, to make sure everybody's on the same page, and what you should be doing as a landlord regarding your lender, not only just communicating with the lender, but also specifically on the forbearance, since this is starting to pop up a bit.
So a forbearance is a legal agreement that essentially restructures the term of a loan between the lender and the borrower. And it's where, the lender forbears some of its benefits of the agreement that was previously made. And it gets, it's a binding loan agreement. Historically, it's typically, it's a document, it's an agreement that's used in restructuring a troubled loan. A forbearance agreement, it can show up in credit. It is typically, historically, it's not as negative as a default, but it is one of the steps in a distressed loan. So historically, borrowers have been, don't really want to enter into forbearance agreements because it's seen as sort of a negative aspect of your credit history. So what the agencies are doing right now as part of the stimulus relief is they are offering, borrowers roughly 90 days. They're offering borrowers the option to enter into a forbearance agreement, giving them a 90-day period where they can stop, where they don't have to make their mortgage payments, but then they would have to, make it up, defer the payments over time. And the reality is, lenders need you to enter into this agreement because they have to memorialize their terms, and they still have to have a document evidencing that they didn't just waive it, they didn't forgive it. They're merely giving you more time to pay it. So there's been a lot of questions because people are afraid, well, yeah, do I take this? And if I take it, is this going to prevent me from getting a loan in the future? Is this going to forever put me in the category of unfinanceable or a low quality borrower? And I reached out to my friends and colleagues who represent lenders, both on the agency lenders, but also I reached out to my colleagues who represent a variety of regional and national banks. And I also talked to a former client of mine who, for a long time before he retired, was the president of a large multifamily REIT, privately traded REIT that just invested in Class A apartment buildings around the country. And I said, tell me about this. What do you think the perspective is going to be to borrowers going on down the line who've taken advantage of this forbearance? What is this going to do? So I asked my colleagues who represent the agency lenders like Fannie, Freddie, and HUD said, so what's the deal? A lot of people are suspicious of it. And they were like, no, this isn't going to be seen as a problem going forward. We don't think that this will be negative because these are unprecedented times. The agencies, they're under pressure from the government to keep lending, but nobody knows what's going on. And there's, when you go for another agency loan, they're going to be able to see all the details of it. So as long as you reach out and you stay in contact with your lender and you adhere to the terms of the forbearance agreement, it should be fine. Now, if you don't adhere to the terms, then it's going to be like any other agency loan that you default on. That's going to be a bad situation.
Carrie, is that is this kind of like a simple, they're just going to send you over a one-page addendum and you just kind of sign and you're on? Or is that something that, they should be reaching out to their real estate attorney and making sure that's negotiated properly, because it's going to be a long, complex loan, kind of a loan agreement, but it's sort of the addendum.
Yeah. Okay. So everybody raise your hand if you've done an agency loan, like a HUD loan in the past, maybe their 223 program, the simple streamlined one. Yeah. Did it look simple and streamlined to anybody? No, it's not a one pager. HUD, I don't think the agencies know how to do one page. It is, it's your typical crazy legal language, convoluted, difficult to make sense of. I mean, it's not the phone book that is, you know, your typical agency loan, but it's a lot of paper. You will want counsel to review it and explain it, because it's important that you understand what the terms are and that you adhere to it, because the big thing is, you know, it's not going to be a problem getting future agency loans as long as you meet your obligations under the forbearance agreement. And in order to meet them, you need to understand what they are. And, you know, it's broadly, I mean, it's, you know what these loan language, I mean, these documents, it's like, if we feel insecure for any reason or no reason, we can call the loan. That's literally a provision in all of these documents buried in there. Insecure, I mean, you know, if you don't feel insecure right now, I would argue that you're not legally competent to do business. I mean, so, you know, they're not negotiating. What the guys that I talked to did say is they're not doing a lot of, like, they don't have a mandate to heavily negotiate these, because unlike forbearance agreements that agencies enter into during strong economic times, this is sort of a blanket kind of one-size-fits-all program where they're trying to make it that way. But there's little things that there are some accommodations that they'll agree to, like, you know, if you have counsel, we can flesh out that insecurity clause a little bit. We can get maybe longer grace periods. You know, we can work a little bit on specific, under certain circumstances, you know, the actual economics of your forbearance agreement in terms of debt service coverage ratios and stuff like that.
Carrie, what about if you don't have an agency loan? If you've got, you know, I think one of our clients had a CBRE loan, or if it's just, you know, we've got clients who have private loans. Like, what are your thoughts on that being on your credit? Because obviously they're not agency guys.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. So I called actually a former colleague and pretty close friend of Bethany's and mine, who has been representing the real estate lenders for about 20 years. We came up together, and she said she didn't think it was going to be a problem at all. And the clients that she represents did not, you know, what she likened it to was in 08 and 09, basically between 08 and 2011, we restructured a lot of deals for a lot of clients, right? There were a lot of deeds in lieu. There were clients had to give back properties. Some clients even went into foreclosure, although we worked hard to avoid that. It was a mess. And until then, you know, we felt like we were walking into conference rooms to meet with clients. Like, we felt like we were giving them, you know, the news that they were like terminally ill, because when at that point in 08 and 09, when you said to someone, okay, basically I think the best we can do is a deed in lieu and you can avoid foreclosure, but you're gonna have to give the property back. Before 08, that was the death knell to your borrowing experience in the real estate world. And to have to walk in and say that to somebody who'd been a builder, developer, syndicator for all these years, it was like you were basically, at the time, you were telling them, like, you have to find a new livelihood. When this shakes out, you're done. That's how it was perceived. And lo and behold, even BKs are not, like, it's a blip on the radar. Like, if it's between 2008 and 2011, lenders do not care. It doesn't matter, because they recognize that this isn't indicative of an incompetent borrower or poor credit risk. This is indicative of someone who was doing deals during the recession. And so she actually, like, she gave me that exact example, and said, we are like, our thinking and what we're hearing from the lenders is a forbearance agreement at this point in time, you know, in 2020 is not going to be an issue. It's going to be the same thing that a BK or a foreclosure or a deed in lieu was in 2008, 9, or 10. So
yeah, and it makes sense, right? I mean, everybody's kind of graded on a curve. So I mean, if everybody, you know, 5 years from now is going for a loan and 90% of people have that forbearance on them, you know, that's just kind of thing. I got